Hello and welcome everyone to this live demo session on SAP UI5 and Fiori Training with Business Application Studio on Cloud Platform and SAP Web IDE. This course will also include development and consumption of OData services with end-to-end application management, starting from design, development, tooling, deploying, running, and testing and shipping our application. In this demo session today, in next 30 minutes, I will take you through the introduction of SAP UI5 and also the basics of tooling. You will be able to see how to build your first UI5 application live in action. Of course, please note it's a demo session. Since it's a demo session, I'm not going to go through in the detailed steps to set up the development tool. Rather, we will look at how to set up our development tool in our next class. There is absolutely no prerequisite for you to attend this training. You can be a college pass out, have zero knowledge, but just a basics of programming experience. You can attend this course. All the required knowledge, including JavaScript, jQuery, HTML5, tooling, installations, setup, everything will be part of this course itself. This course is very much suitable for anybody who comes from programming background and would like to build front-end applications with SAP UI5. So let me get started with quick introduction of who is this course for. So this course is for all these kind of colleagues. So you can see I've tried to create and replicate user persona here so that you can relate to one of the user persona. So our first character is Emma Carter. She is a UX designer. She would like to start developing UI5 applications. So by far, she were more into design part, just helping colleagues to give a beautiful UI design and mock-ups on the paper as well as different tools. But now she would like to learn coding and also would like to build application herself. Second persona is Fred Smith on the right side. He's an application developer working with ABAP technology in the company, and he's seeing there is a great shift happening from ABAP technology towards SAP UI5. Even he see that most of the WebDyn Pro and BSP applications are getting deprecated. So more and more applications are built using UI5 technology. And that's where he would like to learn how to build these apps using on top of ECC and S4HANA system. This is what the motivation for Fred to join the course. Now, next is Jonathan D. He's a technical SAP consultant working in SAP BW or Basis or Portal or BSP application development. He's not so new to UI technology. He's already worked with a couple of UI technologies in the past, including WebDyn Pro, dialog programming, or also third-party technologies like AngularJS. And he would like to become a UI5 developer with SAP. So that's the third persona. And finally, Stella Ross. She's a fresher coming out of a college with no experience, and she aspired to become a full stack developer in the SAP world. Even you are an absolute fresher just coming out of college, this course is for you. There is zero prerequisite to learn this. Stella, she will also join us as part of this course, and she will become at the end a perfect UI5 developer. With that, let's quickly look at the phases of this course. We have divided this training into 4 different easy phases. The first phase starts with fundamentals, which includes core concepts of to become a UI developer, which includes HTML5, CSS, JavaScript, and jQuery, including the development tool. Most of you have come back with the questions that about, would I need to install some tool in my system? I have no clue how to get started. People are not giving clear indication. I saw some YouTube videos, but not getting a full flow. Things are very discrete and scattered over the internet. I'm very much confused what to do, where to get started. Don't worry. This course is for you. We will cover in very next chapter how to get started with the development tools. The very first question will be setting up the development tools, and we'll cover in our very next class tomorrow. Yes. And there are 2 development tools which are prominently used today in the market. which is BAS, Business Application Studio and Cloud Platform, and the Web IDE, the web-based development tool for UI5 applications. We're going to cover both in this course. Step 2 will start with UI5 development. We'll understand the UI5 framework and how to build applications using MVC architecture. So when we build application, we are not going to put everything in one file. Rather, we're going to modularize our application. And this modularization also leads to following certain guidelines and principles. Remember, this course not just focus on coding and copy paste. Rather, we will write every single line of code in front of you and make you understand the meaning of every single file, which we keep it into the project folder. The third phase begins with Fiori UX development. We'll understand what Fiori is, its guidelines, and we'll use mobile library to build Fiori application with latest concepts like formatters, fragments, component.js, router, root match handler, manifest JSON, application descriptor, .project.json, new app JSON, connectivity, destination. All these concepts we will be learning in phase 3. In the last phase, we'll learn how to build OData services and expose your real ERP data out. And that's where exactly you would also need access to an SAP instance, SAP server. You would not need an SAP server instance because we'll work with mock data in up to phase 3. And in last 10 or 12 classes is when you need an SAP server access. You can use your company server for sure. And I will also explain you the steps to get an access to your company server, or in case you don't have a server, I'll also guide you how to get an instance access. So what we see today in the demo. So in the demo today, we are going to see these 3 steps. So we'll start with the development tool. We'll create a one-pager UI application. And then finally, we will also test this application in the system. So this will be a simple flow. I'm not going to go deeper into complicated topics. Wanted to keep our demo so light and easy. So anybody who begins the UI5 journey can understand. So that will be our main intention, and the goal for today's demo will be. So we'll start with our development environment. We'll create a one-page application with just a simple button in it. We click on the button, it should give me a message, and then we will have our application testing in the browser itself. So this will be the 3 easy step process for today's demo session. Now, please note, we will use to create an HTML page. An HTML page doesn't really require an additional engine to be able to run on the browser. So we will directly be building a very simple HTML page using UI5. So before we start, what's SAP UI5? Let's understand that more in detail. So SAP UI5 is a framework. What is a framework? What do we mean by a framework? A framework is a collection of libraries. What is a library then? A library is a collection of classes. What is a class then? A class is a collection of attributes, methods, events, and aggregations. Aggregations are nothing but relationship of a class with other class. Attributes are your properties. Methods are functions. And events are something which gets triggered whenever an activity is performed by an user. Now, why do we use SAP UI5? The SAP UI5 framework, we use it to build web-based apps which can run on any device. So the idea is to write code once, and this code can run on mobile, tablet, desktop, projectors, all kinds of devices, browsers, and platforms. That's the main intention of having such a powerful framework. And that's what makes it so different from your classical web technologies in SAP like WebDynPro and BSP. And that's why most of the DynPro, WebDynPro developers these days are coming and joining UI5 training because companies are demanding that, and it's very much in demand. So the classical technologies like WebDynPros, DynPros, those who have worked already with SAP, so WebDynPros, DynPros, then we have BSP technology, we have portal technology, with iViews, we have floor plan manager, FPM technology. All of that is now converging and transforming companies are more and more getting rid of these classical technologies and building more and more applications using UI5. So the fundamental thing is now it's not a one-click transformation. You will be building the applications using SAP UI5 framework. So framework will provide you the built-in libraries. Of course, you don't want to reinvent the whole wheel. You'll start using the framework which is provided by SAP, and we using this framework we will be creating our application. Now, the most prominent library, this framework consists of so many libraries. The most important library or the prominent one we will be using SAP.M. This is the library we will be using called SAP Mobile Library. Now, this library provides us variety of controls. And the control which I'm going to show you today in the demo is a button control. Now, this button control is just a UI control, which you will see in a moment. I will create it on the screen. And then this control includes variety of different properties and methods. So I'll just put down that. So we will have different properties and methods and functions inside as it's a class. So control is considered as a class. So we will have a text property and we will have a press event, which is what you can use to be able to define this control. So text property will give you the label for your button. Yeah, and the press is an event which will get called when somebody clicks on the button. That's a press event. We're going to use that. Yeah. So this is your class, and then you have the attributes and the event within the class. So in a moment when I create a button, I will give this attribute to be able to define the label for our button. Yeah. So we'll start from top to bottom. We'll start very first thing is this framework. So now, in order to use this framework, what is that we need to do? So we need to load the framework. Now, SAP has provided the framework link over the internet. You can directly load it from the internet, and I'll just right now type in the link. This is the link. Now you may be wondering, Anubhav, how do you know this link? Where did you get it from? So we have a concept called SAP UI5 SDK, Software Development Kit for developers, which will help us to be able to identify this information. Yeah. So we will learn that more in detail. But we will, for today, we just take it as a reference and then we will code this. So this we will be putting in something called a script tag. So we will create a script tag in HTML and we will put it inside that. Okay. The next thing which is loading the library. So we need to now load the library. So this framework consists of variety of libraries. So I need to give, while I'm loading the framework, I need to give a special property called data SAP UI libs. And I need to mention the library which I would like to load, which is in this case SAP M library. And then this library gets loaded. This library comes with so many pre-packaged controls like button, input field, checkbox, drop down, selection box, list control. Today, for simplicity, we are just going to use the button class. Now we need to create an object of the button class. The syntax to create an object here is where is to create a variable. We're going to keep a button object and we can say new. New is a keyword here, just like where is a keyword to create a variable. We will use new keyword to create object of a class. And then my class name is library name sap.m. And then of course my class name is button. So this is how exactly you're going to create the object of your class. And while you're creating the object to the constructor of this class, you can pass these properties and events. And these are passed always in a curly braces. Now this may be very trivial thing when you're working with UI5, but symbols are extremely, extremely important. So this symbol is called parenthesis. And this is called curly braces. And this is called brackets. And these symbols will play a very special role when you're coding them. So maybe you are on a call with your architect over the phone, over the Microsoft team, and you are discussing about them to write some piece of code. And this is the valuable piece of information while you're talking, you should say, because if you're not able to differentiate between them, then it's always tricky. That person who's sitting in front of you is end up writing an incorrect version of the code. So in this, we will give property name and property value, and of course, comma. more property name, property value pair, we can provide them in this format. So that's the overall syntax and process of starting with SAP UI5 framework. Now, the second question comes is, that's fine. I mean, we understood that we will use this framework to build an app, but what is the development tool are we going to use? In every programming language, you use some kind of a development tool to be able to differentiate, to be able to do things correctly, right? So what is the development tool do we use when it comes to building UI5 applications? So there are a variety of development tools. In fact, you can use open source tools like Eclipse, Atom, but the tool which we are going to see today in the demo, yeah, is both the tools, just a glimpse of them. The first tool we're going to use, BAS. BAS stands for Business Application Studio. It's the latest tool available and provided by SAP for UI5 development. And second is the Web IDE, which is also predominantly used today in most of the companies. If you have already a UI5 project running in your company, probably they are already using the Web IDE tool. So we will learn both these tools as part of our training, both BAS and Web IDE. And the good news is the code which you write is interportable. So if I write today a piece of code on the BAS tool, I can just download that code and put it in the Web IDE, and it will work out of the box. It's just like you're writing an ABAP code, and this ABAP code never changes whether you write in SE38 or SE80. So you're going to use it interportable. Yeah. So we'll see that also in the demo. I'm going to start with BAS. I'm going to create a piece of code with these rules of the game, which we noted down. And then I'm going to port this project into the Web IDE. That's what I'm going to do. So BAS is like a Visual Studio-like environment, which allows you to prepare a variety of application. It's going forward, the central environment for SAP's multi-cloud application development strategy. You can build Java apps, you can build .NET apps, you can build C++ applications, Python applications, you can build ABAP applications, or also the UI5 application on the single tool, which is BAS. So now I'm going to go back to Cloud Platform. And don't worry about this screen. I'll explain that in tomorrow's session. But now I just click on this, and this starts the BAS tool, and you can see it's already running. So just think about the BAS tool. Let me go back to PPT and explain you what BAS is all about. So this is our basics of development tool. So anytime you ever developed with any programming language in whole of your life, then you would have used some development tool. So to get the development tool right, the very fundamental thing which you need is a computer, a machine, a computer, right? So you need a hardware. Now, on top of this hardware, you would have installed some operating system, which is also the bare minimum. You may be using Mac OS or Windows OS. And for example, if I got to code in C programming language, then I have to say int I is equals to 10, and I say print f. So some kind of this code, if you try to write on a notepad, it won't run. Why it won't run is because it needs something called a C compiler. And this C compiler is what talks to your operating system, and then operating system talks to your hardware, right? So this is what we actually need to be able to run any C programming code. So compiler is what understand the code. So whatever code we write, that's understood by compiler. Now, similarly, if you want to build a UI5 application or a JavaScript application, you would need a tool, point one, where you can write the code, and you would also need an engine which can understand the code. So you understand now, in the last slide, I told about the engine, the framework, but there has to be a place where you should write the code, and that's called BAS. So Business Application Studio, or so-called BAS, is a tool which allows you to provide the necessary services and tools to write the code. And then fundamentally, this code, when you execute, it runs in a browser. Now, who should understand this code is nothing but UI5 framework. So we're going to load the UI5 framework using the code which I was showing in the last slide from the internet. So UI5 framework, we're going to load in the browser. And the code, when you're writing the code, you will mention, please load UI5 framework. So that is a piece of code you're writing, and as a result of that, when this code executes in the browser, it will load the UI5 framework as a first step. And the good news is both this tool and the result both runs in the browser. So basically, you can run the tool plus the result both in the browser. Which means the great thing is you don't need to install anything in your machine. And that's what exactly this tool is doing. Now, to run this tool, you need to have an operating system and hardware. And if I say I can give you virtual machine, I can give you machine running on the internet where you have already this pre-installed, what could be the great advantage? You really don't have to configure any of these things. And that's what exactly this bash tool running on the internet here. You can see I'm running a virtual machine. This is a computer with an operating system, and on top of it, you click on it, it will open the development tool. So that's just a development tool. Don't be so overwhelmed by bash or web ID, bash or web ID. It's just a development tool. You can see how it looks. Just simply a development tool. So it starts like this. If you compare it, very much similar to those who have worked with ABAP, you see it's very much similar to SCAT environment. In SCAT environment, you have on the left side your project view, where you have all the files. And on the right side here, you have the code view where you see all the code and you write all the code. So this is typically how it looks like. Now, in order to create a code in your computer, you always create a folder where all the files are stored. And that's the same concept which we do here. We create a folder. The folder is just little technically named here as a workspace. So workspace in a bash is a folder. So maybe we'll go back to the terminal of my computer. There's a computer on the internet which is running. I go to the command prompt and I go to cd space slash, and now I'm inside the user folder. So I just check all the projects. So you can see there is a computer folder called projects. Inside this, if I go cd change directory to projects, I am inside the projects folder. And if I do an ls, I can see all the projects which I have in my computer right now, which are stored by my colleagues or by myself on this virtual machine on the internet. So I would like to create a new project. So I can say mkdir, make a directory, and we'll name this project as SAP demo. And now I'll do an ls, so you can see an SAP demo is created. So a folder is actually named as a workspace. So you'll jump into this workspace now and you'll start creating the project as we discussed. So to jump out of the workspace, you can just go to option called terminal. I guess here we have an option to go to workspace. So we can just go to find command and I'll say open a new workspace, and I'll say workspace, add folder to workspace, close workspace, save workspace, and there has to be something called open workspace. Yeah, just click on that, and now I will see SCP demo, September demo. I'll just select and open that, and you will see the bash tool is now going to open that specialized folder for me, and that's it. I will create now a folder inside my project folder. We call it as web app, web application. As you mentioned, UI5 is to build web applications. And now what I'm going to do is right click and add a new file. So we always start with an index.html file. You can name this file anything you like. You can say Spider-Man, doesn't matter. But I'm going to say index.html. That's a good practice. And here on the right side, we've got the code. So any HTML5, just like human body has two parts, the body and the brain. Yeah, the brain controls the body. Similarly, in HTML page, when we create, we have a possibility to add a header, which is the brain, and a body. Body is what user will see. So anything kept in the body is what will user actually see. Now, what I'm going to do is I will go back as per our step number 1, step by step, line by line, no copy paste of code, guys. That's a mantra of this training. So you'll start with load of framework. So पहले framework load करेंगे. So let's come here and write a script tag to load the framework. And of course, you know the address which we just wrote out there. Yeah. Now, how does Anubhav know that address? As I mentioned, and I'll cover chapter number 11, where I'll talk about SDK, where you will also know what is the URL of this framework. So let's put that. So the very first line, I'm instructing the system, please load the framework. Now, this is a loading process. Since it's a loading process, it's also known as bootstrap. Yeah, bootstrap. So next is we will load SAP UI libs, and I'm going to say that I would like to load mobile library. And there's one more additional parameter which I would like to load is the theme. Theme is nothing but the coloring and the experience. So let's load that data SAP UI theme equals to SAP Blue Crystal. So you might have heard about, you might have seen some Fiori apps in your life. These Fiori apps will include actually the blue color background. That background is coming because of this theme, Blue Crystal theme. That blue color background comes because of that. And together with this, I will also say this whole body which I have, which is going to display to the user, it will belongs to a classification property, SAP UI body. So this whole body is not a core HTML body, rather it's a special body. It's of type UI5 body. Yeah. And then I can just write a simple division tag or div tag. We're going to detail out about HTML tags in our next class, class number 2 and 3, where I'll cover HTML5 basics. So you may be an ABAP developer or BW developer, really don't need to understand any of these things. I'll cover them in chapter 2 and 3. And I'll give an ID identifier to this guy. And let's give some ID, let's say Anubhav. And I'll save this. Maybe I'll just also go back down and I say, welcome to anubhavtrainings.com, and I'll just save this up. And let me run and show you the first preview of this application. So that step one, it's going to load all the framework. It's going to load the theming. Theming will get you that little light blue color in the background. It's going to print this hard-coded text on the screen. That's what system is going to do for us. I'm going to right click and I say open a preview, and voila, you can see your first application with the light blue color background, just like a Fiori app looks like, and with the text is hard-coded text is printed on the screen. Awesome. Can close the preview, come back and get rid of this. Bye-bye. Just for checking. And next step is as you remember, we're gonna use one of the class, one of the control. So we can use another script tag. And you see, system also gives us a very nice code completion while you're typing. It always helps you to complete your code, and autocomplete option is also there with Bash. Now I'm going to create a new button. I can name it anything. Let's say Oh Spidey, and I can say new sap.m.button object. So we're creating a control and an object of a class. Button is a class, and we can write an ID for the button if we want to. And you can put comma curly braces, and inside this you're going to give all the properties. So my first property name is the text property, and I'll say click me. That's my button label. And then I'm going to press event which says function, and on click of the button, what should happen? That's my function, that's my behavior. So I'm just going to use a reusable function called alert. Just like in ABAP you have a write statement, you use write statement in ABAP to print some text on the screen. We have an alert function here, which is a built-in function to use print something on the screen. I say welcome to Anubhav Trainings. Step by step, line by line, no copy paste of code. Don't learn from trainers who teach you copy paste of code. They are cheating with you. They are not teaching you. All right. Now, if I do the preview, it will not work. Why? Let me just do that and tell you. So we can go back to preview, and you'd see just an empty blue color screen comes. My button doesn't come. The reason is, as I mentioned, that until unless this button is not placed into the body of HTML, this won't be displayed to the user. So we have to take this object and we have to call a method called place at. Please place my button in the body, and where to place? Please place it in this canvas. This is an empty canvas, empty area, which is nothing but Anubhav. I would like to place my button inside this Anubhav area. Just save this up, and I will go back, right click and say open with a preview. And voila, you can see we've got our button out there. Just click on the button and there you go. You can see it's printing something on the console. Congratulations, guys. In just 30 minutes, you've created your first UI5 application, understanding the core of it, the heart of it, the basics of it, and also creating with the new syntax how to create your first app. Now, as I promised, that the code which you write, whether you write on the BAS or you write it in the web ID, doesn't really matter, doesn't really cause a difference. So what I can now do is I can export this code from here and I can import it to the another tool called web ID. Don't be overwhelmed what you're going to see now, because the tool installation is what we will cover in very next class, which is tomorrow. So tomorrow morning session, I'm going to cover how to set up this tool. But for now, what I can do is I just show you the tool is already installed in my system, local machine. This is running this time on my local machine. You can also do that. Those who have permission in your laptops or company laptops, you can install the tool in local machine. And we're going to do absolutely same thing over here. I'm going to come back, create new folder, and I can say September demo. And I've got an empty folder. You can also create manually the file. But what I wanted to do now is to show you getting that project which we created here and uploading that over here. Yeah. So BAS to web IDE. So I can come back to web app folder, right click over there, and we have an option called download. We just click on the download option, and you can see the web app tar file got downloaded, but it's a tar file. The tar file is not supported by the web IDE tool. So we're going to go back to this on our computer. We can right click over here and extract this web app folder on our computer folder. And then we're going to go inside and you see our file. And what I'm going to do, right click and we create a zip file out of it. So I'll use WinZip tool, WinRAR tool. Don't worry, we'll cover that tomorrow, installation of this tool. And then you can see we got a zip file. So I'm going to go back straight ahead to web ID, right click, and this time I do an import because I'm bringing it inside my web IDE now. So there I've exported, here I'm importing. I'm going to go to file system, browse, and just go to downloads folder, web app, and that's where I'm going to import our file, and voila, you can see it's now there. So your code which you write either there or here, it doesn't matter, it's interportable. Tomorrow you can export this as well, and you can import that on the BAS. It will work out of the box. Yeah. Let's execute this. We're going to get absolutely same result. There you go, it's running this time on my local machine, and I click on that and you can see my results. So your code is interportable between the tools, web BAS or web ID. Many times a lot of you come to me and say, Anubhav, I'm using BAS and I don't know whether what to do. My company is using BAS or my company is using web ID. Will you cover this? Will you cover that? Please understand that your code never changes. It's more or less the same, whether you use BAS or whether you use web ID. It's absolutely same. Yeah. So that's how exactly we develop application, and they are all interportable. We will also learn how to develop apps on web IDE and then port them on the BAS at the end of this training. So time for some frequently asked questions by many of you who already asked me and I already answered them. What will be the duration of this training and prerequisite? The duration is 40 hours. There is zero prerequisite, no prior knowledge required for you to learn UI5, zero programming knowledge, zero knowledge on any specialized thing you don't need to have. You're an ABAP consultant, just like me, you can learn UI5 in this training because we cover UI5 basics also in this course. Basic programming skill, if you're a developer, this course is for you. The timing does not suit me. Can I go with video mode? Yes, you can go with pure video mode training. My recently completed batch videos, you can start going through them on a fast track basis, and you can learn with your own pace with those videos. You don't need to attend daily live classes. Of course, after every live class, you will also get the video. Just in case you miss a class, you also going to get the video. What tools do I need to learn? Where do I get those tools? Of course, no server, no tool you need to know prior before the training. We will use BAS, Business Application Studio, and Web IDE tool. And in our next class, we'll see how to install these tools or get access over the cloud absolutely free for a single developer. By the way, there's no charge for these tools. They are free for a single developer. What about the server for practicing OData service? Yes, we would need that in the last 10 to 12 sessions. And that's when I'll take a dedicated session only on server access part. How to get server access or what to check in your company server to be able to use it on the system. That I will cover a dedicated session only on SAP server part. Now, will you cover the real-time scenarios? Yes, we will develop an end-to-end application including the connection of data coming from real SAP system. And then we will deploy and deliver this application to production system via transport. All of this process, including Launchpad integration, will cover in the course. I'm new to SAP UI5. Can I learn it? Yes, you can learn it. Even you're a college pass out, just a fresher, you can learn UI5. In fact, I have many of the college freshers who have attended my training and working in companies as a UI5 development colleagues these days. So we have HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and jQuery. We will cover that. Please note that we don't need Java programming language in this course. We need JavaScript. JavaScript and Java is nothing in common except the word Java. So JavaScript is a different programming language altogether from Java. They are both not same at all, both in their usage perspective and use cases and the development methodology. So we will learn JavaScript. JavaScript is browser's programming language. You don't need any Java knowledge or Java requirement for this course. If I miss a class, how do I refer? Each class will be recorded and you will get video recordings of that class after the session is complete. So what's the process to enroll for this training? It's very simple. Just reply to the email which you receive from us or just mail us on contact@anubhavtrainings.com. And for more questions, you can always visit anubhavtrainings.com/FAQ where we answered all your questions already. I'm sure your questions are not so unique. All the questions which you have probably already answered on the FAQ section. Please go back and check that accordingly. So with that, it's a wrap on this demo session. I hope you enjoyed this short demo. Of course, our classes are starting right from tomorrow, same timing. No change on the timing. For those it's not convenient to join at this time, please go back and you can go ahead and watch probably the videos, or you can follow through the complete course using video.